Police officers in Ohio decided to crash a black man's funeral, declaring it a riot. So now, again, this happened to the family of Tamika Cheers, whose 23-year-old son actually died in a car crash after a high-speed chase with Ohio State troopers. And so the funeral for Charles Pierce Luis was held on Tuesday with over 100 family members in attendance. According to Cheers, things were going fairly well. I mean, it's a funeral, so it's not going to get like raucous. They were fine. Everything was going fine. The funeral was proceeding as scheduled until police showed up. And when they did show up, they showed up in force. They pulled out guns, tasers, and even unleashed police dogs. They then arrested 5 family members for quote unquote rioting. What the hell, Ohio? What is going on here? So cops show up, pull guns, people obviously get agitated because it's a funeral, they get mad, and they start, of course, feuding with cops. And then were arrested for resisting arrest, and then the police say, well, we had to do it. It was a riot. It was a riot. Now, according to the Lorain police, funeral attendees were mostly cooperative, except for a small group of people. These people, again, apparently resisting arrest because the cops just pulled up and, I mean, okay, this is complete insanity, right? What were you even there for? It's a funeral. It's a funeral. I know. Whenever there's a large gathering of black people, apparently it must be a riot. They must be very, very dangerous. No, give me a break. What is going on here? I mean, no, this is according to a neighbor speaking to 5 News. This is somebody who, was a witness, right? After the police arrived with guns drawn, tasers and police dogs, all that stuff, family members and people from the neighborhood were trying to calm the situation down, right? To make sure nobody got shot, nobody did any violence, anything like that. Now, other people not related to the funeral apparently were starting to feuds. There were some fights in the streets with cops. There were people arguing. And again, none of that happened until the cops showed up. So if it's a peaceful situation before the police arrive, and it becomes an unpeaceful situation after the cops do arrive, then who do you think's to blame for the situation getting out of control? Well, I would blame the cops. And look, understand, this is what happens at BLM protests as well, right? 93% of the BLM protests, and they've been going on for months, have been peaceful. This is according to studies, right? 93%. And yet, that 7%, what we've seen in a lot of those cases, right-wing provocateurs, right? People infiltrating the protests, or police agitating, and that, of course, creates violence. And so then, after the cops agitate in some of those situations, and they come in and they attack peaceful protesters, the protesters fight back, and then police can, once again, move in with more force. And because, well, hey, it's a riot. We have to. We have no choice. We have no choice. And why would they do this? Because in a lot of cases, police are not on the side of the protesters. They're on the side of, white supremacists, by and large. They're not on the side of the protests. And there's a reason, of course, white supremacists have infiltrated police departments. I mean, look, the original goal of the Ku Klux Klan was to infiltrate government agencies, including police, to prevent black people from exercising their fundamental rights. Now, those rights that they originally went after are the rights to vote. And, of course, institutionally, they're still going after those rights. But now, apparently, you don't even have the right to hold a funeral in Ohio anymore. I mean, it's insanity. Now, Cheers said, quote, "Just because you see a bunch of black children and family members and elders, don't mean it's a problem. We were just celebrating my son's journey through this life, a journey that is no longer happening." She also added, quote, "I don't hate police, but I don't care for them either, because they're supposed to protect and serve, Y'all didn't do that last night. Again, who did this protect and serve? Look, here's the thing about this country, right? In America, we've got a fundamental misunderstanding of what police actually do, what their job is, right? I mean, yes, their job is to protect and serve, but not the people, not the powerless, right? Their purpose is to protect property, protect private property. And of course, they serve the powerful in order to do so. This is why, once you realize this, you begin to understand why police respond to things the way they do. Why police generally don't tend to go after people who are fairly powerful. Okay? Why? Because, and generally, it tends to be white people. If you go after somebody who's, generally a white person who's driving a nice car and all that, who might be doing like drugs or selling or doing financial crimes or whatever, well, that person could be a judge's son. Or not even in that case, right? You just look at, and I forget his name, like Ethan Couch, the affluenza kid. That was one example of that. But you also had the boy who, or I should say the man who raped a woman behind a dumpster. And for some reason, I forget his name. And, they were worried about his future, right? Well, I mean, I don't want to punish him too harshly, because what about his future? Well, you don't worry about a black kid's future. No, you, in that case, you usually lock that kid away, and you lock him up, you throw away the key. And that's what happens. And so they're not out there to protect regular people. They're not out there to protect, of course, people who are powerless. And understand that's also why there's a huge backlog of rape cases, rape kits that are unsolved, untested. It's also why they ally with white supremacist militias in places like Kenosha, Wisconsin. Allow people like Kyle Rittenhouse to go back to their home state after murdering 2 people and then arresting him later when there's outrage. Brock Turner, thank you. I was thinking of Ethan Couch, who is the affluenza kid. But at the same time, right, I'm not saying that cops should not protect property, right? I mean, that is part of their job. That is what they originally were created for. Now, they were created in the slave states to protect white people's property, which happened to be escaped slaves. So understand that is the racist origins of police. And I'm not saying that every police officer is a racist, but it is a racist system of protecting quote unquote property. And so for me, I think, wouldn't it be nice if we actually had a department or some sort of, governmental force created solely to protect people instead of property? Would be nice. We need to understand that what our cops really do and why there has to be a need for reform. Because there's a lot of fellow white people who don't quite get it, because for me, for example, I've never had really that bad of an interaction with a police officer. It has always been cordial. It has always been pleasant. But my experience differs greatly from that of the average black American, and that is what's wrong with the system.